Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the brilliant, honestly kind of counterintuitive playbook behind Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. If you've ever wondered how the absolute titans of Silicon Valley really got off the ground, well, you're in exactly the right place.
We're kicking things off with Thiel's notoriously difficult interview question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? You see, he asks this because a truly great answer reveals a belief that is both unpopular and, crucially, true. The absolute biggest, most valuable business opportunities, they don't just sit out in the open. They're hiding right there in those unpopular truths. Find the thing everyone else is completely blind to, and boom, you found the starting line for genuine innovation.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 0 to 1 progress, diving into why competition is actually for losers, mapping out the 4 traits of monopolies, exploring the last mover advantage, uncovering secrets in distribution, and then we'll wrap it all up with a summary.
Starting with Part 1, 0 to 1 progress. Let's take a look at the fundamental difference between vertical and horizontal progress.
So if you look at the horizontal axis here, going from 1 to n, that basically means taking things that already work and just copying them. It's globalization. It's taking a typewriter and churning out 100 more typewriters. But look at the vertical axis. This is the 0 to 1 progress. This is about doing something nobody has literally ever done before. In a word, it's technology. It's looking at that typewriter and inventing a word processor. Thiel's whole argument here is that to build a massively valuable company, you can't just copy. You have to pursue that 0 to 1 vertical progress.
Moving on to Part 2, and this is a big one. Competition is for losers. We are going to completely dismantle the idea that competition is somehow good for your business.
Here's the harsh reality. In a perfectly competitive market, companies are forced to price their products right at the cost of production. Basically, nobody actually makes any real money. Just look at the U.S. airline industry. They generate hundreds of billions in revenue, but historically, they make basically zero cumulative profit because they're trapped in this brutal, endless struggle for survival. Now contrast that with Google in search. Google is what we call a creative monopoly. They offer a product that is so incredibly unique there's no real substitute, which allows them to capture immense, sustainable profits. Creating value is great, sure, but if you can't capture a piece of that value without competitors grinding your margins down to zero, you're in trouble.
I love this quote because Thiel takes a page right out of Tolstoy's Anna Karenina and just flips the famous opening line on its head. In the business world, all happy companies are different because they've solved a totally unique 0 to 1 problem. But all unhappy companies? They're exactly alike. They fail to escape the gravitational pull of competition. It's like opening the 100th pizza joint in the same neighborhood and just exhausting yourself fighting for scraps.
That brings us to Part 3, the 4 traits of monopolies. How do you actually go about building that kind of unbreakable defensibility?
Well, first off, your proprietary technology needs to be at least an order of magnitude. We're talking 10 times better than the next best substitute. If it's not a 10x improvement, you simply won't break through the noise. Think about PayPal making eBay payments 10 times faster than sitting around waiting for a physical check in the mail. Second, you need network effects. This is where your product actually becomes more valuable to the user as more people join, exactly like Facebook. Third is economies of scale. Software is absolutely magical here because the cost of producing one more copy is practically zero. You just get stronger and stronger as you get bigger. And lastly, branding. Look at Apple. They have a total unshakable monopoly on the Apple brand itself. They control the materials, the software, the store design, creating an entire category of their own. The absolute strongest monopolies out there, they combine several of these traits.
Okay, Part 4, the last mover advantage. Let's talk about scaling and why being completely obsessed with being the quote-unquote first mover is actually a trap. We hear it all the time, right? We have the first mover advantage. But here's the thing. The goal isn't just to be the first one to the party. The real goal is to make the last great development in a specific market and then just sit back and enjoy decades of monopoly profits. Think about it. Google was definitely not the first search engine. Facebook was not the first social network. But they were so overwhelmingly better on the dimensions that actually mattered that they effectively became the absolute last movers in those spaces. So, how do you practically pull this off? How do you become a last mover? Well, you don't start by trying to conquer a massive, multi-trillion-dollar global market. Doing that just paints a giant target on your back and invites a flood of competition. Instead, you start tiny. You dominate a niche so small that people might even think it's a joke. Facebook started with just 10,000 students at Harvard, right? But they captured 60% of that market in 10 days.
eBay started with Pez dispensers. Amazon was literally just an online bookstore. Once you lock down a monopoly in that tiny niche, then you slowly, methodically expand outward into adjacent markets until you've scaled into a giant.
And why does being the last mover matter so much? One word: durability. Look at Thiel's own math on PayPal from way back in March 2001. A staggering 75% of the company's present value actually came from cash flows that were expected a full decade later, 2011 and beyond. The overwhelming majority of a truly great company's value exists way, way out in the future. Long-term durability matters so much more than a brief spike of short-term growth.
All right, moving to part 5, secrets, plans, and distribution. These are the hidden, under-the-hood engines you have to nail if you want to build a 0-to-1 company.
It all begins with the secret. Like we talked about with that interview question earlier, every great company is built upon a secret. And we're not talking about workplace gossip. We're talking about a fundamental truth about how the world works that everyone else is just totally blind to. If you walk around believing everything good has already been invented, you are never going to find one. But discovering that secret, that gives you the unique, completely uncopied foundation you need to launch your vertical progress.
But once you've got your secret, you have to have a plan. This matrix is super interesting because it contrasts the definite planning that built the massive, complex monopolies of the past, think the Apollo space program or even SpaceX today, with the sort of indefinite, incremental mindset we see so much of now. In an indefinite world, people just tweak and iterate slightly on what's already in front of them. But to go from 0 to 1, you need a definite, long-term, fiercely optimistic plan. You can't just A/B test your way to Mars, you know?
Now here is the kicker. You can have the best secret and a brilliant plan, but you will still fail if you don't nail distribution. It's a harsh truth, but superior sales and distribution can actually create a monopoly even if the product is totally average. But the reverse never happens. Nikola Tesla invented actual magic, but he struggled because he didn't master distribution. You have to carefully navigate your customer acquisition costs so you don't end up trapped in this distribution dead zone. The golden rule is simple. The lifetime value of your customer simply must exceed what it costs to acquire them.
Bringing us to part 6, summary and the edge. Let's pull all of these incredible, contrarian ideas together into one cohesive playbook.
If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, lock these 5 pillars in your mind. Stop trying to just copy what works and strive for vertical, 0-to-1 progress. Avoid competitive markets like the plague and build a creative monopoly using proprietary tech, network effects, scale, and brand. Don't go after the massive markets on day 1. Dominate a tiny niche and become the last mover. And finally, find a secret, build a definite plan around it, and completely obsess over your distribution.
If you're getting value out of this kind of structured, highly focused learning, make sure to hit subscribe to the Edge Library so you never miss an explainer. We are constantly digging through the noise to bring you the purest, highest signal visual insights out there. So I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on as you look at your own professional life. Are you exhausting yourself, just endlessly competing for scraps in an industry where everyone looks and sounds exactly the same? Or are you bravely venturing from 0 to 1 to create your very own monopoly? The future belongs to the builders. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.